first launch in 1996, the Ariane 5 has evolved from the GERS generic version to ECA version, cryogenic version, which is today the standard configuration like Ariane 4 was. The ES version has been specially developed for the ATV mission. The core stage and the booster are absolutely identical to the Ariane 5 ECA version, and the upper stage EPS is the same that equipped the generic version. The reignition capability of the EPS was, of course, the reason for this choice.
So we can say that we combined some of the proven elements from the earlier
We combined very well proven elements, absolutely, to build up this version of ES.
Like the main cryogenic stage, which remained the same for the ES version. There was some new flight software that had to be defined for this longer mission tonight.
Yes, and some reinforcements of the upper structures in order to cope with the very heavy weight of the payload.
Right, the carbon fiber in the vehicle equipment bay, which we keep talking about because that's where the computers are located, that had to be strengthened. Also, the attitude control system had to be adapted for the longer flight tonight.
Yes, we have on board 6 tanks of 37 kilograms of hydrazine for the attitude control system, whereas we usually have 3 or 4 tanks for GTO missions.
Now, these upgrades, I assume, were coming out of the benefits of all the archives. Ariane 5 been flying for about 10 years now, so there's a lot of material that you could use from. We just had the DDO calling out extinction of the upper stage, so we're at the end of our first phase of the mission into now what we call the coasting phase, the ballistic phase.
The ballistic phase has started upon the shutdown of the EPS,
and that should be going for about 45 minutes.
This will be this will be going for 45 minutes before the second ignition of the EPS.
That's some of the new things going on for the flight tonight. We're going to go over now to Arianespace Chairman and Chief Executive Jean-Yves Le Gall, who's going to make a short statement to introduce this coasting, this ballistics phase. As soon as he is ready, I think we're going to hear from him at his...
In the meantime, we can hear the DDO say that everything's normal, the trajectory is okay.
We're doing fine. Jean-Yves Le Gall will be speaking from his point in the Flight Directorate.
So, the first part of the Ariane 5 ES mission has now reached an end. The upper stage of the launcher and the ATV are shortly to fly over Europe, the southeast of Asia and Australia. This will last about 45 minutes. The EPS will be reignited for 30 seconds at the end of 45 minutes, and then there'll be separation of the ATV from the launch vehicle. So we'll be back with you in around about 45 minutes for the second part of the mission. Thank you.
Okay, there you have it. We're into the coasting phase, where we are running on momentum, I guess. There's no propulsion involved.
There's absolutely no propulsion, so we're just have this very stable and predictable movement, which is only driven by...
Poursuite normale de la télémesure par la station de Montée-las-Flores. Récupération de la télémesure dans 36 minutes.
Which is only driven by gravitation, but...
Next up, we have an interview with John Elwood, mission manager for the ATV, Jules Verne. We spoke to him earlier in the week here in Cleveland.
Now I'd like to introduce to you somebody very important for the launch tonight. He's the customer, Mr. John Elwood. John, could you tell us what's exactly your function and what has been your function for the campaign and also for the flight tonight?
Yes, I'm the mission manager for the European Space Agency for the whole of the ATV. So on one side we're managing this very exciting, very challenging long launch campaign out here in Kourou, and also in Europe we're getting ready to operate the spacecraft with our colleagues in Canes, in Toulouse. And on the third side is we're with the launch vehicle getting ready to put this amazing vehicle on top of a new Ariane. Ariane is going into manned space, and it's a very exciting step.
John, could you tell us about your personal experience in such long and complex launch campaign you have been through?
Yes, I have actually very good experience of out here in Kourou. Apart from liking the place and the people, we've had fantastic professional relationships. I was 4 years ago in charge of the Rosetta launch campaign, where we had a successful, fantastic launch on that as well. Over the last 7 months, we've had a lot of work to do. It's been a long campaign. I think one thing that is interesting is the new dimensions of this campaign that we've had to do here in Kourou, and work together with our colleagues from the Launch Center Arianespace. For example, we're taking a satellite up to the International Space Station, and this is the first time that a man-rated satellite is being launched by Ariane. I mean, this is very exciting. We've had to do all sorts of new things here that we've never done before. For example, we're taking cargo up to the space station, so we've had to load the clothes for the astronauts, the food they're going to take up there, as well as all the provisions we're going to take to the space station.
Could you now give us your personal feeling about the evolution of the European spaceport around with such new programs like the ATV and other ESA ventures?
The Space Center is developing in a fantastic rate. I mean, to begin with, this is the first time you'll be launching something to the International Space Station. So it's the first time you've had man-rated launch vehicles. And we're going to be doing this every 18 months. And hopefully we're going to have evolutions of different ATVs. And on the other side, we've got other exciting ESA programs going on, slightly smaller launch vehicles. So we've got Soyuz, where we can go and do some fantastic deep space planetary missions, and also some small Earth observations using the Vega launch vehicle.
So John, thank you for your time, and now we have to wish you a good ATV mission up to the ISS.
Thank you very much. We're all very excited.
John, it's worth mentioning that John Elwood was also a project manager for the ESA probe Rosetta.
We have some time. We can talk about the International Space Station now. Some key figures. You know, it's been manned since, I think, 2000. And they've been doing a lot of experiments in life science and microgravity and earth science, space product development. Nearly 300 experiments, including 500 hours of spacewalks. It's a big, powerful science laboratory up there. The European astronauts have been making regular visits to the ISS after their training at the European Astronaut Center in Germany out in Cologne. ESA spent already, I think, 5 billion euros on ISS to date, including the Columbus module, which went up to the station last week. I think the current agreement lets them launch one astronaut every 2 years or so for a stay of 6 months. And with the ISS scheduled to doubling their crew from 3 to 6 coming up, I think, next year, ESA would like to be a part of that also, and probably will. It's a very active period now for the ISS with Columbus and the ATV and then the Japanese module coming up. Is it always like that?
Well, we can talk about the altitude of the ISS, which is actually 400 kilometers, and this altitude is actually lower than what would be required by a launch from Baikonur, which is at 51 degrees north latitude, but it corresponds to the constraints of a launch from Florida or French Guiana. So the ISS orbit is basically the best compromise between the Soyuz rockets from Baikonur and the shuttles from the Kennedy Space Center. It's because it has to be serviced by Soyuz rockets from Baikonur and shuttles from Florida.
Yeah, it's a real international cooperation between the Russians and the Europeans and the U.S. We mentioned the Astronaut Training Center. We're going to be hearing shortly from an astronaut here.